Story 1. Hi, I am a 26-year-old woman, and I wanted to get some things off my chest about my sister-in-law, whom I will call Emma, who is living with my parents and me along with her 4-year-old daughter, Daisy. Not only is she living rent-free, but my parents are also giving her money each month. I feel that she is an entitled parent and that I am in the right, but I keep second-guessing myself, so I wanted some opinions. Our family situation is extremely unusual, but I will try to summarize. My brother, whom I will call Brian, is a paranoid schizophrenic with intense anger issues and violent tendencies. I always knew he should not be a parent, but he ended up inviting us to a shotgun wedding only 10 days before it took place, to a woman I had never met and my parents had only met once. My other brother and I actually found out at the wedding that she was already pregnant. Brian turned out to be irresponsible and abandoned Emma and Daisy only about a week after she was born. He had a psychotic break, left his job, and started riding his motorcycle all around the country multiple times, along with countless other reckless behaviors. Obviously, I felt horrible for Emma. Over the years, I stayed in light contact with her and Daisy, and I liked Emma well enough. Daisy is an absolute ray of sunshine who bursts into laughter every time I talk to her, and we have so much fun together. Emma is an immigrant who does not have citizenship. Her education from her home country is not considered valid here, so she has bounced between many very low-paying jobs. I have felt very sympathetic to her situation and have tried to help out when I could over the years, as long as it did not sacrifice my own mental health and well-being, which I already struggle with a lot. Emma has many family members living in the United States, some local and some in other parts of the country. Before moving into my parents' house, she had tried living at least 3 different times with members of her family. My parents and I always wanted to take her in, but we were already dealing with Brian, who was living with us while refusing to work or find his own place. He has huge resentment toward Emma, based on delusions that she is not the woman he once knew, but instead was replaced with some kind of agent who was sent to ruin his life and steal his money. He even convinced himself that Daisy is not his child, despite her heavy resemblance to him and a DNA test proving otherwise. For a long time, he refused to pay child support until my parents and the courts finally forced him to. I have been bullied and terrorized by Brian my entire life, and it only got much worse in recent years. I finally was able to break free from him in October after I had to call the police to take him away to the psychiatric ward again because he was striking my parents in the face, threatening to harm them, almost started a fire in the garage, and destroyed numerous things, including one layer of a glass door that shattered all over the basement floor. I moved out because my parents were open to taking him back when he was released. I never want to see him again because I think I might have a breakdown myself if I do. Luckily, he ended up moving to his own place since my parents offered to give him $1,000 a month. That is when Emma and Daisy then moved into my parents' house. Last month, I was struggling with my mental health and with difficult coworkers and bosses. I ended up leaving my job and decided to move back in with my parents. Living with Emma, however, I quickly came to strongly dislike her. The only way she would talk to me was by going on long-winded monologues, offering me advice I was clearly uninterested in, and she never listened to a word I had to say. I still spent time with Daisy, but I decided to stop talking to Emma because I simply did not enjoy it. Even then, I did not have a problem living with her until she started making many smug, passive-aggressive comments to me and my parents, questioning the way I did things. For example, she would ask why I brushed my teeth where I did, why I used a certain bathroom, or why my laundry bag was sitting in a certain spot. For Daisy's birthday, I bought her a tricycle that cost over $100, and she loves it. She just has some trouble pedaling, but she is learning. One day, I went to the park with Emma and Daisy, and Emma said, "Do you still have the receipt for this tricycle? You should return it. She can't use it, and I read bad reviews online. I want to get a different one." I was pretty annoyed by this but tried to shrug it off. My mom had also bought Daisy a kitchen playset, and Daisy told her, "My mom said you should have gotten me a bigger one." The next day, Daisy and I were playing with my cat, and we kept going. Meow, meow. I think she might have attention deficit issues like me. Emma suddenly said, "Daisy, stay away from that cat," and then turned to me and said, "I don't want her saying that." I decided to spend some time alone and went down to the basement. Daisy followed me because she really wanted to hang out with me, so I turned on SpongeBob SquarePants, something we could both enjoy while I used my laptop. Well, not even 5 minutes went by before Emma called Daisy back upstairs. I did not hear everything, but I heard Daisy start crying, saying, "But I want to watch SpongeBob with her. Can we watch something else together?" She never came back, so I am guessing Emma said no. Even after all this, I still tried to ignore Emma and kept to myself, except when Daisy followed me or engaged with me. But I finally reached my limit when Emma decided to scold me directly in my own home. I was already nervous because my dad and I were about to start a Zoom call, and I was drying my hair while he was yelling for me to go get my charger. At the same time, Daisy was following me around, asking about everything I did, saying things like, "Can I join you?" and speaking a million miles a minute. That part was fine because I know kids are like that, but I also think children should be taught boundaries. So I said, "Yes, but we are about to start a call, so be quiet." That is when Emma suddenly ran over and said, "Don't tell her to be quiet like that." She grabbed Daisy, rushed her back to their room, and then said, "I'm having her stay with her aunt tomorrow." The next day, they were gone the entire day and did not return until midnight. None of us saw them all day long. Ever since that incident a couple of weeks ago, Emma and I no longer speak to each other. The only time she did talk to me afterward was a few days ago, when she was criticizing my mom and telling her that she was doing things wrong. I was already upset and joined the conversation, asking, "What did we do wrong?" My mom also asked her the same thing. Emma just replied, "You know what you did," and then refused to tell us what exactly we had done. She told me that I had no control over my emotions, and once again I asked her, "What did I do?" At that point, she gave me a very accusatory look and said, "You don't know what you did? You shushed a child. That is wrong. You know you are wrong, and now you are still mad about that? I actually feel bad for Brian because I saw you talking to him like this too before." She went on to say many other insulting things to me, and then, after all of that, she had the audacity to start crying and telling me that I should feel bad for her situation. She brought up what my brother had done to her, saying that I had no idea what it was like to move to another country, how she had developed an illness during pregnancy, and many other things along those lines. There is honestly a lot more I could say, but this is already long enough. So, what do you all think? Story 2. I was reading a story recently that reminded me of this incident, so I thought I'd share. This happened about 12 years ago. A close friend and I were at a local movie store. Not a Best Buy or Blockbuster type, but a small local business that's awesome. It was summer, and it was super hot. Anyone who's been in the desert area of the southwestern United States knows summers are hot. My friend and I went to this place with a family friend. Now a bit of backstory about the family friend. She's a WW2 Marine nurse who also served in Korea and Vietnam, was severely wounded in Vietnam, had the bottom half of both shins blown off by an wide-type bomb that destroyed the vehicle she was in, sent her flying 60-something feet, and lodged a heavy piece of shrapnel in her spine and almost cut her in half. As I said, it was hot out, 97 degrees or so Fahrenheit, so even with the windows open in a car you're still sweating. As my friend and I were walking in, the family friend had gone in ahead as the heat doesn't help her heart. She's got a heart condition. We saw a kid probably no more than 4 and no younger than 2 years, sitting in a car seat in a car with all the windows up, 1 or 2-inch gaps in the back too, and the car off. The kid looked like he'd been there a while. My friend went back to our truck, grabbed a 2x4 out the back and smashed the window. We didn't think there was time to try and find the mom, as there were a few stores around and no time to check them. We pulled the kid from the car and rushed him inside the video store. The owner, a friend, told us to grab a cold soda out of the fridge and give it to the kid. The family friend was checking on the kid when we heard a banshee-like scream behind us. The following dialogue ensued. "What the heck did you two do to my car?" "You're the mom?" "We were trying to." I was answering her, but of course she cut me off before hearing what happened. "Why the heck did you break my window? You two little jerks will pay for my car repair." Side note, the car was already falling apart and looked like it was ready for the scrap heap anyway. "We ain't paying for nothing. We saved your kid from a heat stroke. You're welcome," my friend told her. "He's fine. You two need to pay for the damage you did my car and pay for my videos." She had a stack of about 7 DVDs from different shows, mostly adult and one kid movie. "Are you stupid? They just saved your child. Be grateful you're not being arrested for homicide," the family friend told her. Side note, this family has a thick Irish accent even though she grew up here in the US. Karen stares at her blankly, then says the classic Karen phrase, "We're in America, speak proper English." "And you go screw yourself," she told her back. The conversation goes back and forth as Karen tries to, and does poorly, to defend her actions and why me and my friend need to pay for her crap. The family friend basically told her, in no uncertain terms, to go away before the cops arrived. Needless to say, cops were called, they took Karen away, and the kid ended up with his dad. Story 3. Thank you to everyone who enjoyed the last story. Here is another one, involving the troll-faced neighbor versus my dad and his power washer. This took place a long time ago, during June or July, when all the kids were on summer break. My sister had to fill me in on how it all started. Where my sister lived, the street ended in a dead end, and kids were always out and about playing. My niece and nephew were on their way to the park to play basketball, but an incident occurred where older kids were picking on the younger ones. My nephew ended up in a fight with 2 of them for bothering his sister. My niece jumped in to help protect her brother, and the situation turned into black eyes and bloody noses all around. When my dad heard what had happened, he said, "You know, I'm going to head to the store. I think I have a solution." He left and came back to my sister's house with a basketball hoop. It was a portable one, easy to move, and the kids were thrilled to finally have a safe place to play in peace. About 6 kids from the neighborhood began playing together, having fun without bothering anyone. They usually packed it up around 5 in the evening. The best part was that all the parents could look out their windows and see their kids playing safely. About a week later, Trollface came outside and started yelling at the kids, demanding that they stop making so much noise. This was at 3 in the afternoon. Another entitled neighbor who lived next to Trollface came out as well, joining in the yelling and insisting the kids go home. The children ignored them and continued playing. Soon after, my sister heard someone pounding on the front door. When she looked, she saw Trollface and the other neighbor standing there, looking like 2 creepy villains out of a horror movie. They shouted at her, complaining that the kids were being too noisy, that they were being disrespectful, and even threatened to call the police. My sister told them to leave the kids alone and get off her porch. Trollface demanded that the basketball hoop be taken down, but my sister simply shut the door on them. Not long after, it was assumed Trollface had called the police, because officers showed up to see what was going on. Kids playing basketball is not a crime, so the officers told Trollface the children were allowed to play. They explained that only if there was noise after 11 at night could they issue a citation. The kids, of course, were always home in bed by then. Trollface was furious, so she decided that if she and the other neighbor sat outside and taunted the children, it would be enough to make them stop playing. It became like replacing one group of bullies with another. If the ball rolled close, Trollface would grab it and say it was hers, refusing to return it. She did this every single day, waiting for a chance to take the ball. She probably thought that taking it away would make them quit playing, but it didn't work. One day, my dad showed up. My sister filled him in on what had been happening, and I guess he thought this would be the perfect opportunity to test out his brand new power washer. He grabbed a lawn chair and set it facing directly across from Trollface's house. He set up the power washer, ready to go, and then sat down while Trollface glared at him. The other neighbor quickly went back into her house. That neighbor didn't want to upset my dad because he had helped her with yard work before, and she knew better than to cause trouble with him. When I arrived, I saw my dad sitting out front and wondered what on earth was going on. "Dad, what are you doing?" I asked. He grinned and said, "I'm just enjoying the day." Then he sang a little tune, "Boom badada boom, I'm going to be cleaning out a rat's nest soon." Suddenly, he jumped up and turned the power washer on. "Hey, hands off the ball, troublemaker," he shouted. "It's mine now," Trollface yelled back at him. My dad smirked and turned to me. "I bet you $5 this lady has a wig on," he said. Then, with perfect timing, he sprayed her hair with the power washer, and sure enough, her wig flew right off her head. My nephew was quick to grab the basketball while Trollface screamed in horror, trying to cover her bald head. "You awful man, my hair, oh no, my hair," she cried out. "Watch your mouth. If you want basketballs so badly, go buy your own," my dad shot back. She ran into her house, and I guess her husband wasn't home that day. The funniest part was that most of the neighbors were outside doing yard work, walking, or just enjoying the afternoon, and they all saw everything happen. I pulled out my wallet and handed my dad $5. He grinned and said, "Looks like I cleaned out this troublemaker's nest. Job done. I'm going to get some coffee." Trollface ended up calling the police again, and the officers came out. This time, all the neighbors gave statements about what had really been happening, including how Trollface had been making rude remarks to the kids whenever they played outside. Nothing happened to my dad, but the officers did remind him that he should not spray anyone with the power washer again in the future. It turned out that Trollface had taken a total of 8 basketballs from the kids. The police returned the balls and told her that if they were called out again, she could be arrested for harassment and property theft. That was the turning point after that day. No one saw Trollface or the other neighbor outside anymore whenever the kids were playing. Eventually, Trollface and her husband moved away. My sister and our dad were thrilled when they heard the news. In fact, my dad couldn't resist adding his own flair to the moment. He drove up to my sister's house while Trollface and her husband were moving out the last of their belongings. Out of his speakers blasted the song, "Another One Bites the Dust." He thought it was the funniest thing ever, and the neighbors couldn't help but laugh too. Story 4. My mother picks me up from work, and we exchange greetings as she puts on her Facebook video to play out loud on top of the car dashboard, ready to drive us home. I am not asked how my shift went or how I am in general. We do not talk about what is going on at home. It is always like this, actually. The one time I mentioned how she does not ask about my day, which was around a year ago, she got upset and said that if I wanted to talk about my day, then I should just start speaking. It is not the same. I just want my mom to be interested and eager to know about her daughter's day. My mom calls me rude whenever I try to express my feelings, and I convince myself in a hopeful but mistaken way that maybe each time will actually work. I have tried. I have broken down on my knees, shaking, trying to explain how I feel about her attitude toward me, the lack of help I get from her regarding my mental health, or just the way she is with me. Yet every time, and I mean every single time I have tried, it has ended up being a painful experience. I do not mean to exaggerate by using the word traumatic, but my brain has truly suppressed how difficult those times have been because remembering them in their truth is distressing. My mom would yell at me, ignore me after I spoke, and scroll on her phone, disregarding my tears on the ground. She would call me rude and useless, say that I do not support her or do anything for her, claim that I never check up on her or help around the house. She would then call her sister to talk about me on the phone and have her sister discipline me, during which she would say that I was making my mom unwell and not helping. It was almost as though I was a problem child. Each time this happened, It led to either harmful thoughts or actions because of how much my state of mind deteriorated. My dad and I have not spoken in 2 months since our last argument. In 2 weeks, I move out for university, and every day it feels more likely that we will not speak at all by the time I leave. I am watching people around me spend their last few days at home with their families, scared to leave because they do not want to see their parents cry. Meanwhile, the only thought on my mind is the fact that I am truly alone. I do not have anyone who will miss me or love me in that way. I look forward to leaving this place, I truly do, and it has been a dream of mine for as long as I can remember. I do not really know how to explain the feeling I have inside of me, but the best I can say is that I am sad and lonely. These are supposed to be the times when children are closest to their families, and yet I can say wholeheartedly that there has never been a time when I got to experience that. And it hurts me deeply, both mentally and physically, to look around and see it in others. I just want to experience, at least for one moment, that motherly and fatherly love people talk and write about. I want to be free with my parents, to be my true and honest self. I want them to think of me as their pride and joy. I feel as though my mother thinks of me as a disappointment, as if I am foolish and worthless. She can never recognize anything I do or even say thank you, despite the years of parentification I have endured due to their struggles in organizing a work schedule that suited my younger siblings. For years, my life has revolved around my younger sisters, almost like a third parent. I have had to cancel plans, cancel work, and even leave work early just to be with them. And through it all, I have never received a thank you. Since I got my first job at 16, now being 19, I have never asked them for financial support with anything. My days usually consist of me staying in my room the entire time if I am not at work. It is honestly depressing. When my dad is home, whom I have been avoiding since the argument, I avoid going downstairs, which ultimately means I do not eat unless I can ask my sister to bring me food, so I end up eating upstairs. The point is, without exaggeration, my whole day is spent in my room, quite literally. And again, my mother and I do not talk about anything, so she does not check on me or even knock once. Lastly, this is something that has been bothering me, even if it may seem slight. As I said, I will be going to university this year, but my parents are completely unprepared for it. I understand that finances can be an issue, and that they have 2 other children, but I almost feel as though part of how unprepared they are is because they simply do not consider me. I am even a gap year student, so they should have had an extra year to prepare. Why is it that nothing has been done for me, but they are fully ready when it comes to my younger siblings going back to school? University is a big thing. Unfortunately, now we cannot afford accommodation, and they expect me to pay while I do not have any money of my own either. I am stressed about it, yes, and I have no idea what to do. My student financial aid does not even cover half of what I need. Story 5. My family is about to start an entire storm that I need an opinion on. There are a lot of players here, so I'm going to spell them out for you. My mom Ellie, good aunt, Madison, bad aunt, Delilah, favorite cousin Miles, who is Madison's child, Grandma Sally, stepdad Jason. Background: in my family, no one takes accountability for their actions. Delilah is the worst offender, but I'll get to her in a minute. Family drama is something my end seems to shy away from. Ellie and Madison are the only reasonable ones in my family, and me and Miles are the products of that. We were raised to take accountability and make good decisions. Ellie always told me it was because I don't want you to turn out like anyone else in our family, and over the past couple of years, it has become apparent why. Ever since I could remember, Delilah was always just off to me. We went to her house for parties, and I hated being there because it stank and was never clean. And I'm serious about that. It had this almost greasy sweet smell that I could never really place. The floors were always sticky. There was just stuff everywhere all the time, and never got picked up. Dishes were never done, and the list goes on. As a child, I never questioned this because in our culture, it's always rude when a child criticizes an adult. Delilah has 4 kids. Her oldest is 20, I think, and moved states about a year ago. The other kids are all under 13, the youngest being maybe 5. Every time my mom and I went to Delilah's house, it was always the same way, messy, dirty, and stink to high hell. My cousins are good kids, though loud and rowdy. I'm an only child, so I never really understood this. They lived in that house and always seemed happy, so I didn't see anything wrong, other than the obvious state of the house. But who was I to say anything about it? Then there was a crack in the glass I looked through. I don't know why, but Child Protective Services got on my aunt for something, or maybe someone called them and Child Protective Services gave her a warning that they were going to go to her house to search. The problem was that her house was a mess as usual, and she wasn't in the state for some reason. So my grandma went to her house and cleaned it for her from top to bottom. She stayed there to care for the kids and cleaned that damn house. The only time it's ever been cleaned, I'm pretty sure, from top to bottom. Delilah always tried to get other people to clean it for her, but everyone always said no. But this time, someone did. I was never told directly about any of this. I just overheard it from my mom's conversation with other family members about it. My grandma, who was 60 years old at the time, hurt her back cleaning that house, and to my knowledge, Delilah didn't do anything to pay her back for that. My entitled aunt always forks her children on my grandma for free babysitting for whatever reason. Every time I go to my grandma's house, those kids are there, and to my knowledge, they sleep there most of the time too. Then the divorce. Her ex-husband is the father to the last 3 of her kids. The eldest has a different father, and suddenly I heard they were getting divorced after who knows how many years. This ain't very noteworthy to me, but what happens afterward is, my entitled aunt starts acting like she's hot and in her 20s. It's relevant here to mention that she's fat, not plus-sized, fat, like north of 280 pounds fat. I'm not sure how old she is, but I know she's in her 40s. But after the divorce, she starts acting like she got the body of Ariana Grande or Lady Gaga, with how often she goes out to drink, and she leaves those kids alone. None of them are old enough for that. Several times at a family event, she brought a guy with her that I didn't know, and no one else knew about him either. My mom and my other aunt were disgusted by how embarrassing that was to her little sister. My entitled aunt is the oldest sibling, followed by my uncle, my mom, then their little sister. Again, during this time, I don't think about it or talk about it because it wasn't my business. But when my mom allowed me to curse in front of her, that's when I actually started hearing about it directly. The problem. Recently, my mom and good aunt had a conversation over the phone, and when I asked, my mom told me about it. My little cousin, who is the middle child of the youngest of Delilah's kids, literally begged my good aunt to help her. Apparently Delilah's house went from bad to worse, as they now have rats and bed bugs. She says that she can't sleep because she's constantly getting bit by those bed bugs, and she can hear the rats skittering around at night. You can actually see the bites all over her skin from this. She had gone to my good aunt's house because Delilah asked her if she could do her online classes there, as she was the only one of her siblings who had online school. My good aunt agreed, and she dropped the bomb. She immediately rushed to Delilah's house, dropped her off, and tore into Delilah through the screen door. Madison, my good aunt, is typically a pacifist and never gets involved in anything really, but this upset her that she knew she had to do something. According to my mom, Delilah brushed Madison off, saying it wasn't that bad and her kids were fine and happy. But Madison knew it was nonsense, and went back to her car and called my mom, because she knew trying to talk to Delilah was like trying to talk to a brick. Now it's also relevant to mention that my mom is a bit of a black sheep. She doesn't sugarcoat things and says exactly as she means. That is the way she raised me. And because of this, our family criticizes her because she thinks she is better than us, or it's none of your business. We don't need to hear your words, etc. No one really enjoys the truth. And that's why Madison called her, because she knew that my mom would back her 100%. But my mom's first concern was that her getting involved would turn her family against her, and she adores those guys. I know she doesn't want to lose them over this, but her moral compass was about to make her. She asked me what I would do, and I told her that everyone's opinion doesn't matter anymore. Those kids are in a horrible, neglectful situation, and we need to help them because they can't do it alone. Madison has already sworn to get involved and call Child Protective Services. But my mom calmed her down and told her that they should talk to my grandma about it because she sees them most often, and Delilah is more likely to listen to her. It's a slim chance, but it's a chance. My grandma is currently in another state for a funeral, but will be back in the next 8-ish days, so they resolve to tell her when she comes back. But that night, my mom talked about it to Jason, my stepdad, and another bomb was dropped on me. My grandmother knew. My cousin told her about the way they lived, asked her for help, and my grandma did nothing. I was floored, and at that moment, I knew that if my mom and Madison didn't do anything, no one would do anything. Jason is the only outside opinion, and he says that the main problem is that my grandma is an enabler. She's the one who allowed Delilah to grow up and continue as she is. My mom tried to defend her mom, but she couldn't deny the truth of his words. I was silent and thinking. The next day, I went to Madison's house and talked with my favorite cousin, Miles. We are pretty much soul sisters, and I tell her everything. But this was weighing too heavy on my mind. I had to vent to her in person. I told her that my main concern is for those kids and their mental health. This already has to have an effect on them. But once Child Protective Services gets involved, they will get taken from that home faster than MJL comes to Thor. Not contacting Child Protective Services isn't an option, and I voiced to her that the youngest is the biggest risk, because she's not old enough to understand it or even begin to comprehend. She's going to be the most heavily affected from being taken from her mother. But if Child Protective Services separates them, that's a whole other can of worms. I felt better about it after talking, and we ended up just hanging out and spending time together before I had to leave. But today, my mom told me she consulted a third opinion and decided not to get involved more than just backing Madison up. She reasoned that it wasn't worth it to get involved in the drama that would unfold, which I think is nonsense reasoning. I want to help those kids, and I couldn't care less about how the family viewed me after that. I couldn't live with myself if those kids just stayed, and they were, and I can't imagine why my mom cares so much about the drama when those kids are the most important. So I thought that once they talked to my grandma about it, and we know whether she's going to do something about it the second time she's been told. If she doesn't, I would personally get involved. If no one else did, I would call Child Protective Services myself. My problem is, I don't know if it's my place at all. I know I have to help those kids, and this is the only way I can. But I don't know if I'm overstepping my bounds here. And I'm also a minor. I don't know if I can get involved, but I want to if no one else will. So I need advice here because I can't just sit around and do nothing. Update. Thank you to everyone for your comments and advice. It really solidified my decision, and I actually did it. I called Child Protective Services on her.